I used to have, I had this place, this was like a full-fledged gallery at that point. We're kind of underground. We're more underground now than we were even then. We were started off underground, purposefully,
Right.
But this was a gallery. Right through that opening right there, we had the whole other side, another 1,500 square feet. That used to be just a clear opening.
Really?
So we had the gallery. We used to do coffee houses, jazz, gospel, classical, folk, everything. We had dancers come through, all kind of. It was like a real coffee house from like 1955.
That was here?
Here, yeah. And we had a good run. We get like 100 people every first Saturday. We get like 100 people roll through. Net open mic. I mean, you might get a gospel singer. You might get a classical cellist, folk guitar, a lot of poets, a lot of gospel folks, some funk folks, jazz, bunch of stuff. It was nice. We had a good run for about 2 years. Ran out of money, same old story. I don't want to describe her physically, but she's striking, and the emotional intensity of her poetry. I have to say, it moves me in a way that was. I don't even know. It's unspeakable. I can't even comment on it. I mean, not that the others are not good, but something about the emotional intensity of her work. But you got young brothers like this brother calls himself local poet, Africana. There's a bunch of folks. Okay. I can't, the name kind of escaping right now.
Right.
But I mean, there's a bunch, and this is the thing. I mean, this conversation can go in so many directions. But in terms of that, you got a bunch of powerful young poets. I mean, some of the work is kind of middling, kind of sophomoric and like, I fell in love, I fell out of love, fuck you, all that shit. I'm mad at you, I'm gonna write a poem about you, kind of stuff. But then, I would say 75 to 85% of it is highly conscious, very radical, coming from basically like a hip hop perspective, but kind of moving in individual directions, very nice stuff. So you get a nice mix. So I figured like this is a good way. You got a young audience, good way to get started. Invite the poets in, give them a space to do their events, and eventually, do some cultural networking, and we can get the coffee house back up and boom, 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 boom. So we're in the process of doing that now. Yeah, there's a model that I'm heavily influenced on. Actually, you may know the brothers. Bill Strickland, you know Bill? Next time you're on your bike, if you're going biking in the spring through Pittsburgh.
I was in Pittsburgh. I was just in Pittsburgh.
Amir Rashid used to be here in Bridgeport, older brother?
No.
Used to be with the Panthers. He was here in Bridgeport for like 30 years. He's from Cleveland and Pittsburgh. I don't know where he started, but he goes back and forth between Cleveland and Pittsburgh growing up. But he's recently moved back to Pittsburgh. But look for him, Amir Rashid.
Amir Rashid.
But also check out this brother, Bill Strickland, Manchester Craftsmen's Guild. Bill Strickland calls himself a social entrepreneur. He has this thing where he uses, and actually I'll show you his book. He's written a book recently, just came out last year, called Make the Impossible Possible. And basically it's a cultural center that has become sustainable and it's world class, primarily driven by jazz. There's a lot of recordings that you'll see live from Manchester Craftsmen's Guild. They won like 3 Grammys for recordings.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Paco de Rivera, Nancy Wilson, and there's one other. The Count Basie Band, but after post-mortem, it's like, but they still are winning Grammys. But they won 3 Grammys from concerts that were recorded live at this place. But it starts with jazz at the core. But he has all these arts programs that are directly related to like alternative education and then workforce development. So he's found a way to make arts programming profitable. So he calls himself a social entrepreneur. So this brother, you want to get into this? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was a program director at an organization called Music and Arts Center for the Handicapped, which is here in Bridgeport, MOC. It's still MOC, but it's now called Music and Arts Center for Humanities. Back then, it was an organization primarily for disabled children and adults, blind, hearing impaired, physically disabled. We did arts programming for them, right? So I'm program director. You know, so that organization just happened to be a sister organization in this national guild. So we get a newsletter, right, every month or whatever came out, and every month they'd have, Bill Strickland gets another 100,000. Bill Strickland gets 1.5 million. Bill Strickland does this. I'm saying, like, who is this motherfucker? I'm saying, like, 'cause I had no idea who he was, but I'm saying, like every month in the newsletter, they would tout, boom, 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 Bill Strickland, all right. So I said, let me find out who this individual is. I know he was a brother, first of all. I didn't know he was a brother, because they never mentioned that. They just say Bill Strickland, this, that, and the other, right? So I call him. I said, like, my name's Gerald Moore, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Read about you in the newsletter. He said, okay, I'll forward you. And I couldn't even tell from his voice on the phone that he was a brother. It's a very straightforward, corporate type voice. I said, this sounded like a brother, but I wasn't sure, So he said, I'll forward you the materials in the phone call. A few days later, I get the packet, open it up, bam, it's a brother. I'm saying, like, okay, like, you got all these white arts organizations putting him up as, like, top shelf. I'm saying, like, and once I read, I said, cool. Coincidentally, on the staff of the Music and Arts Center, we would rotate staff to go to the national conferences, right? So it just so happened, it was my turn to go to the national conference. So, I'm putting on my paperwork, and I look and I see the keynote speaker, Bill Strickland, down in Dallas. So I make my way to Dallas, meet the brother. We hang out in Dallas for like 3 days. Presentations off the hook. When you see more about the materials, you'll know exactly why. But at the end of the 3 days, I said, man, you got to come to Bridgeport. He said, yeah, I understand. I said, we really need you. It's like a desert. We have nothing. We need to really do some culture work. He said, first I want you to come to Pittsburgh and see my center. Come back to Bridgeport a couple months later, make it down to Pittsburgh. And this place is off the hook. Everywhere you look, you got quilts, you got pottery, you got paintings. You have a cafeteria that's world class. 5-star cuisine, produced by the students. They have a menu where they never serve the same entree twice for like a whole semester. Every day the kids create a new hot cuisine kind of entree for the kids. I'm talking about for the kids that come through the class, what I'm saying? It's like off the hook. Photography program, video, jazz ensemble, beautiful gallery. So that is my model. Manchester Craftsman Guild is a model that I want to try to replicate, or in some form import the best principles and practices into what we do, the cultural work that we do here. There are other models. The brother Jeffrey in New York that's doing over in Harlem. I forget his last name. First name is Jeffrey. Getting a lot of money, doing a lot of good work down in Harlem. There's a bunch of folks, but I have to say Strickland by far is. I've never seen anybody do cultural work on this level, to this level of quality. It's just world class, unbelievable. The thing that I'm interested in is just creating a space for them to be able to do their thing. It's not so much. I'm folding my agenda into that, and just want to be supportive of them. And eventually, what I want to do is, something else in terms of, using culture in terms of community development on a larger scale.